Welcome to Steve's Cottage with Steve Horner. Steve Horner, a former radio talk show host, helps spotlight the source of today's social chaos while offering practical solutions to the problems negatively affecting you and your family. And now, here's Steve.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another bombastic edition of Steve's Cottage. Good to have your company. Come on in. We've got some information to share. Say, I thought I'd do the Jack Lemmon look-alike outfit here today for the first show of spring. Remember I told you my friend Carol said, I remind her of Jack Lemmon. And she has that Katharine Hepburn look to her sometimes. But anyhow, this is good time to have company in, because I have some things to talk to you about. Early, at the opening, I said, welcome to another bombastic. My friend Ernie called the other day, and Ernie is a retired guy, a few years older than me. He's the last of my major advertiser customers. I was in the advertising business with the Steve Horner Corporation back in the Twin Cities of Minneapolis and St. Paul for many, many years, and carried it even on the road with me after my kids left home. And I set sail for new roads and new adventure, which I found, and here I am in lovely St. George, Utah for the last 14 years. And so Ernie has become a great friend. We've done a lot of long-distance bicycle rides together, and he and his politics and my politics are right about the same, and he's an upbeat, intelligent guy. And so he called the other day and said, "Hey, Steve, ready for another bombastic conversation? How you doing? Give me a call." I called him back today, and I said I was in a meeting having lunch with the BLM law enforcement officer. Nice fella, and we've acquired a rapport where I buy lunch and then he buys lunch and so on and so forth. And I'm not talking Black Lives Matter, that sleazy outfit. I'm talking about the Bureau of Land Management. And I've told you before that I pick up litter down at the Virgin River Gorge. Good exercise, makes me feel great. Go down and watch the river run with a cold beer before I head home and some cheese and crackers, or maybe just take a hike. It gives me a real feeling of fulfillment and ownership. So I said, I said to my BLM fella, I said, the Arizona people who are supposed to be picking up trash along the ditch, along the exit ramp, are doing it with a front end loader, and they're piling it into a BLM ravine. So we sold that story to the Arizona district guy in Flagstaff. He became upset about it, and I told him, I got the BLM enforcement guy interested, and so we're getting that all cleaned up. But I like to be the whistleblower. I like to get involved. I wish we all did, because it would be such a clean, upbeat, easy to navigate, harmonious life. So I told Ernie when we're on the phone, Ernie, I said, I'm looking up looking up the definition of bombastic. Do you know what it means? He laughs and he goes, well, actually, I really don't, Steve. I think it maybe means like maybe aggressive. And I said, I think that's what I thought it was too, but I looked it up and it says pompous, meaningless rhetoric. And I know a lot of simpletons are out there going, yeah, dude, that's what you are. Pompous, meaningless rhetoric. That's what you deliver on that Steve's Cottage. And I say to you, read my books at stevehornerbooks.com, and you'll see that each and every one of my principles and anecdotes and forecasts are right on the button. There is nothing bombastic about anything that I say in any of those books. They are true as if I had a crystal ball with me as I was writing them. So here we are, the first program of spring. Punxsutawney Phil was certainly right in predicting that we'd have a late spring. And for the most part of the country, it has been. So the title of this show is, Are You a Sucker? Are you being played for a chump? Maybe a fool? Maybe all of the above? Maybe you are if you're allowing yourself to be called, get this now, are you being called a hater? A sexist? Misogynist? Homophobe? Just because you're trying to uphold your moral compass and the spiritual values with which you were raised? Are you acquiescing, surrendering your moral compass to the chumps, to the fools who are making you out to be a chump and a fool because you're not falling prey to their ideology, their liberal, super left ideology, which really, honestly, makes no sense. Their stuff really is the bombastic idiot rhetoric of the century. But if you are, and if you play the puppy dog role when maybe your child or your wife or a friend or neighbor or somebody at work is calling you racist, sexist, hater because of what you're saying and you're standing up for your morals, and then all of a sudden you kowtow to them because you don't want to be called those names, you're compromising your principles for the sake of comfort. Comfort at work, maybe a paycheck. Maybe you'd get fired if you wouldn't acquiesce to that nonsense. Maybe you wouldn't get so lucky at home with sweetheart. Maybe there would be more, maybe there would be more discomfort at home if you held on to your moral compass. But instead you acquiesce, you surrender, you kowtow, you fold. You become a sucker. And that's actually no different than the Las Vegas hooker who compromises her principles on the strip for the sake of money. And she says, well, I really don't like what I'm doing, but I have kids at home, and I got to do it for the money. Okay, fine. So you're compromising your principles for the sake of money too, just as she is. Money, comfort, same thing. So that's being a whore. And frankly, I think there are some of those people that come visit me here at Steve's Cottage. And then after hearing the message, they go, oh, well, that bombastic jerk. I'm not visiting him. I'm not visiting his cottage again. But you see, the deal with those people is that they've chosen the wrong trail that leads off the cliff, and they continue to wear their blindfolds, and at midnight they're going to take a big fall. They can't stand the truth, but instead they fall prey to idiots, other idiots. And, you don't want to be, you don't want to play sucker to these people. You've got to maintain your patriotism and your backbone. And so when I say things here on this air, on this podcast, it doesn't mean that I'm racist, sexist. It means I'm referring to the behavior of some. And if you've been indoctrinated into thinking that mentioning some words are wrong and paint you as a hater, then those are the types of people that visit the show and then leave and don't come back because they aren't comfortable with the truth. For instance, last week I was telling you about newspapers in America. It's easy for me to say. I used to deliver the Minneapolis Tribune. That paper was called the Minneapolis Star and Tribune. And up into the 70s, they couldn't print newspaper fast enough because people all across the country were reading them, maybe 2 editions a day. They had the Tribune in the morning, and they would deliver again in the afternoon. That doesn't happen. That hasn't happened for years. These papers are so teeny tiny because there's no advertisers. Why? Because there's no readership. Why? Because in the 70s, with the Jewish-owned newspapers, and I'm going to get to that in just a moment, but they are Jewish-run newspapers. Well, you know, Jews have a bit of a reputation for pinching a penny. So they brought women on who had all been college educated by this time, you see. And a woman is inherently sentimental. I mean, 80% of them vote Democrat. What does that mean? You know, Democrats feed your plate with welfare. That's the sentimentalism about that. Oh, you poor thing, you need favors. Okay, we'll give you government handouts. That's what they stand for. Not all of them, but 80% of them do. So they're college educated. He brings them on. He gets them into the newspaper writing business. Some of them have columns of their own. They have opinions. They share them, but they're all liberal. And people who were reading newspapers, who were mostly, affluent white men and their families, well, they didn't like the nonsense of these liberal leanings that they started seeing in their newspaper, and they canceled. And that's why you have huge numbers of newspapers going under these days. They're crashing. And those who, there were those who were smart enough who didn't want to be indoctrinated with this liberal, communist, socialistic idiocy. Well, some remained because they bought into the liberal politics, but they've been dumbed down by those liberal politics. And so now, because they don't have the education or the smarts to even read a newspaper, they've lost those customers as well. Now, do you believe there is anything wrong with Jew-run newspapers, as well as the Associated Press? The Associated Press is all run by Jewish people, and they provide news coverage for radio and TV as well as newspapers. Do you think there's an agenda? Now, let me show you this, okay? I don't want you to be scared off by me saying Jew-run, okay? This is not Adolf Hitler talking to you folks. This is not pre-World War II Germany, okay? I'm talking, and by the way, if you ask a seasoned Jew, maybe from the temple, maybe from the newspaper, from the radio, from the TV, maybe a politician, maybe like Chuck Schumer. Chuck, why did the Holocaust happen? What did the Jews do that pissed off the Germans so much to kill 6 million? Always the response will be, screw you. You're just an anti-Semite. Click. Always that will happen. There is never any discussion. The answer is because they're liberal people, and most countries back then appreciated their conservatism. It was good for the family. It was good for the pocketbook. It was good for business, good for the churches. These days, it's quite a bit different. They will not want to talk to you about it because it's not race, okay? That's the point. It's not race. It's not racist. It's behavior. They've chosen to be liberal people. Some of the Orthodox Jews, who knows where their head's at. But I think basically they're all like a woman. American woman, I think basically 80% liberal. And here's proof of it. So say, for instance, your newspaper or your TV show or your place where you go for your news was all Catholic run, okay? I mean, I was there in 1960 when John F. Kennedy was elected president, first Catholic. People hesitated because they said, well, his agenda will be run by the Pope then. And JFK said, no, that's nonsense. I follow the Constitution of the United States. But that was conversation back then. They thought that the Pope in Vatican City in Rome would ultimately run JFK's politics. Proved not to be the point. But that was thought of, and that was a popular topic of conversation. How about if your newspaper and other radio, TV news sources were all black run? Do you think there would be an agenda? You saw what they were doing during Black Month. It was all black and it was all skewed toward the black producer's point of view of history. How about if it was all female run? Do you think there would be an agenda? All your news, all your radio, all your TV, all female run. Do you think there would be a female agenda? Of course. How about Muslim run? How about all Hispanic? How about all alphabet people? All run, all your media, all your platforms where you get your news. Do you think there would be an agenda? Some principles would be skewed in their favor? Of course. And that's what the Jewish people do with the press, the media, the Associated Press. They're liberal, and they work on the softness and the emotions of their readers by always supporting the underdog. That's why homelessness ain't going away, folks. They make millions off of this. The food shelves, millions. Millions. They're all supported by state and federal aid. They don't want these things to go away. How about abortion? They make millions. That's why they were so pissed about Trump's Supreme Court people, saying that abortion had nothing to do with the Constitution, and so therefore Roe v. Wade was tossed out, and these people have got to go in another direction. You saw all the brouhaha with that. It still goes on. It's up to the states. For me, that's fine. Utah wants to support abortion, which they are now not doing. I can move. Wouldn't go back to sleaze-ass liberal Minnesota, who is supporting abortion, not only in their own state, but from all comers. You're pregnant? Want to kill your baby? Come to Minnesota, there. And then we'll kill that baby for you, and you can feel real good about yourself. You frickin' weirdos. So, it's the same thing with Biden and Ukraine. You know what? Look at the Hunter Biden thing. Jeez, why were you paid millions and millions of dollars for sitting in on that oil company council in Ukraine? I don't know. I mean, the whole thing is just bizarre. See, but the Jews, the Jews never tackled it, did they? That's why Donald Trump lost. That was the espionage against him. It wasn't the election counters. It was the stories out there that suckers fell for. Suckers, chumps, and fools fell for. Russian collusion was a nonsense. It was a made-up bullshit story by the liberal Jewish press and Associated Press. And they never tackled it. I called him many times. Peter Baker at the New York Times. Where's the smoking gun? I caught him at a supper. He goes, that's pretty good, isn't it, Steve? Click, hung up on me. He knew damn well. It was just, they were playing you, the audience, as chumps, as suckers, as fools, as puppets. So, and that's the same thing, and that's why they hire the women. Low pay, they're sentimentalists. They go after the underdog, and the Jews make money on the underdogs who's supported by state and federal money. Trillions and trillions. And I'll tell you my experience with women on this, okay? So there's some good stuff for you to gnaw on about why I think inherent Jew behavior are liberal, profess a liberal platform. So don't look at me as being anti-Semitic, okay? Because I really resent that. I'm going totally after behavior. I gave you an example of how you would fare with an all-Muslim network, all Catholic, all women, all black, all Hispanic, all alphabet, right? Right. Same thing with all Jew. And with all women. Now, back when I was doing my single parenting, which was really some of the best years of my life, back in Apple Valley, Minnesota, a fella there, and I had already busted ladies' night, gender-based pricing, and it made all the news. It was big. What? You're charging me because I'm a guy to go to this place of public accommodation, and the women get in free because they got the titties, and they're women, and they want equal rights but not equal responsibility, and I'm doing single parenting, and I'm getting charged for not on my watch. So I went to the Minnesota Department of Human Rights. They were all racist. They were all sexist because they thought that I'm the white guy who deserves, who is limiting favor granting time for women at these places of public accommodation. I just wanted equal rights. So I was the bad guy, and it took me 5 years to get that settled, but I got it settled. Gender-based pricing in Minnesota and many other states is illegal, thanks to good old Steve, who I believe is doing a good job with the whistleblowing. That to me is what being a patriot is all about. So after this story became very, very popular in Minnesota, and I was the infamous Steve Horner, Steve Lading, who was having a hard time making his name as a mayor candidate in Dakota County, was getting very upset with Will Banning, something like that. There was some hypocrisy, some lies, some backroom dressing going on that Steve Lading, who was a former councilman, felt very, very screwed over by. And I can't remember the particulars. It's in my book, in the single parenting book at stevehornerbooks.com. But he called and he said, Steve, there's an opening on the Human Services Advisory Council in Dakota County. You want me to put you up for it? And I said, yeah, it's going to raise some hell, isn't it? Yeah, big time. So he put me up for it and nominated me. And of course, that was all that was needed. There was no vote. So I got into the Dakota County Human Services Advisory Board, or council, I can't remember. HSAC must have been council. And that's the county that's just down south of Minneapolis and St. Paul. You have Hennepin County, Ramsey County, Minneapolis, St. Paul, and then just down in the median, it makes a triangle as Dakota County. It was very, very hopping, and it still is, okay? And so I was always scrutinizing these handouts to women, children, other, groups like that from the county. So these women didn't like me. And Steve Lading knew that this is the type of guy I would be, and I was, and I did, and the women really resented me because I was scrutinizing them, always asking for millions and millions and millions to put into their handout 501c3 type of nonprofit money-making programs. And so they ganged up on me, and they really got me. And they would always want to chat with me after the meeting. And one time they gave me a book. And I can't remember the name of it, but it's in my book. And it says, Steve, you're a man. You don't understand the inherent challenges of men and women and children. And we women do, because we have an inherent gift from God to better appreciate the human struggle. I said, that sounds to me like it's really sexist. Get the hell out of my face. But I did read the book. And I came away with the conclusion that this is really sexist. And that's the attitude they have when they get into the Jew press, the Jew Associated Press. They come in with their sentimentalism because they really, truly believe that they have a better understanding by their gender to understand the human struggle. And to me, that is bullshit. You too? I hope. Don't be a chump. Don't be stupid. Don't be a sucker. Stand for your rights, be manly, and have fun with it. Well, folks, thanks very much for joining me today. Man, this has been anything but bombastic. It has been aggressive and intelligent. And I've had a ball having you here, joining me here at Steve's Cottage. So thanks for joining me. And remember, as I always try to remind you, take that in your travels in life. Take that less traveled trail. Because I'll tell you, it provides better rewards, better scenery, and a great deal of richer rewards. So until you come back, knocking, visiting me here at Steve's Cottage, you take real good care of yourself.
Thanks for joining us. Visit Steve's Cottage again with Steve Horner.